way! And crack my even one!
My hands were yanked behind my back so violently I felt something pop in my shoulder. The metal handcuffs bit into my wrists as two police officers forced me to my knees on the gravel driveway outside the Whitmore estate, the mansion where I'd worked as a driver for the past 3 months. "You have the right to remain silent," one of them barked in my ear, but I could barely hear him over the blood pounding in my head and the shocked gasps of my neighbors who'd gathered to watch. "There's been a mistake," I shouted, my voice cracking with panic. "Please just let me explain." "Save it for the station," the other officer said, hauling me to my feet. Through the ornate iron gates, I could see her, Valentina Whitmore, the billionaire's daughter, standing on the marble steps of the mansion. Her designer dress was artfully torn at the shoulder. Her makeup was smeared down her cheeks in perfectly calculated streaks. She was sobbing hysterically, clutching her father's arm as security guards and household staff surrounded her. She looked like a victim. She looked traumatized. She looked convincing. And she was lying. "That's him," she screamed, pointing at me with a trembling hand. "That's the man who attacked me." The officers tightened their grip as they dragged me toward the squad car. I caught a glimpse of Mrs. Rose, one of the housekeepers, watching from a side window. Her face was troubled, uncertain. She knew something wasn't right. But she said nothing. "Please," I begged as they shoved me into the back seat. "Check the car cameras. Check the security footage. Please just look at the evidence." The door slammed shut, cutting off my words. As we pulled away, I saw my mother standing in the doorway of our small house across the street from the estate's service entrance. Her hand was pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. My sick mother, who I'd been working 3 jobs to support. My mother, who was about to watch her son be destroyed by a lie. Valentina had no idea what she just set in motion. She had no idea the truth was recorded in 5 different places. She had no idea that her cruel, vindictive lie was about to destroy her instead of me. But she would learn. Hey friend, if you enjoy real gripping revenge stories, please subscribe. It's 1 second for you but a big deal for me. 3 months earlier, I got my dream job as a driver for one of the wealthiest families in the country. My name is Tobias Reed, though everyone calls me Toby. I'm 30 years old, and before that phone call from Whitmore Estate's head of security, I'd been working 3 jobs to keep my family afloat. My father died when I was 18, leaving me as the man of the house. My mother, Grace, has chronic heart disease that's only gotten worse over the years. My younger brother, Aaron, is a sophomore at State University studying engineering. My little sister, Maya, is a senior in high school with dreams of becoming a doctor. I'd been driving for a rideshare service during the day, doing security work at a warehouse at night, and detailing cars on weekends. I was exhausted all the time, running on coffee and determination, but we were making it. Barely. Then I got the call. "Mr. Reed? This is Hector Valdez, head of security for the Whitmore family. Your name came up in our background check for a driver position. Are you still interested?" I'd applied months ago and forgotten about it. "Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir. Can you come in for an interview tomorrow at 2 p.m.? I rearranged my entire schedule, borrowed my friend's suit, and showed up 15 minutes early to the Whitmore estate. The mansion was like something out of a movie. 20,000 square feet of marble and glass, surrounded by 10 acres of manicured gardens. The cars in the garage, where my interview took place, were worth more than most people's houses. Mr. Whitmore himself conducted part of the interview. Maxwell Whitmore, self-made billionaire, tech industry titan, one of the richest men in America. He was in his mid-50s, sharp-eyed and direct. "I built everything I have from nothing, Mr. Reed," he told me. "I started with a used laptop in my mother's garage. I know what it means to work hard, to sacrifice, to support family. That's why I'm interviewing you personally." He'd read my file. He knew about my mother's illness, my siblings' education, my 3 jobs. "I need someone reliable," he continued. "Someone with integrity. Someone who understands that this family's privacy and security are paramount. Can you be that person?" "Yes, sir," I said, and I meant it with everything in me. He hired me on the spot. The salary was more than all 3 of my jobs combined. Health insurance for my whole family. It was life-changing. I started the following Monday. For the first 2 weeks, everything was perfect. I drove Mr. Whitmore to business meetings, picked up packages, ran errands. He was demanding but fair, and he actually talked to me, asked about my family, my goals, my life. He treated me like a person, not just an employee. Then I met his daughter. Valentina Whitmore was 24 years old and stunningly beautiful, the kind of beautiful that turned heads everywhere she went. Long dark hair, perfect features, designer everything. She'd been in Europe for a month when I was hired, which is why I hadn't met her right away. The first time I drove her somewhere, to a charity luncheon downtown, she spent the entire drive on her phone, barely acknowledging my existence. That was fine with me. Professional distance was exactly what I wanted. The second time was different. "Toby, right?" she said, sliding into the back seat in a cloud of expensive perfume. "That's cute. How old are you?" 30, Miss Whitmore. "Call me Valentina." Miss Whitmore makes me sound old. She leaned forward and I could see her reflection in the rearview mirror, studying me. "You're very handsome, you know. Has anyone ever told you that?" I kept my eyes on the road. "I'm engaged, Miss Whitmore." "Valentina," she corrected. "And I didn't ask if you were engaged. I asked if you knew you were handsome." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I appreciate the compliment, but I'd prefer to keep our relationship professional." She laughed, a sound like tinkling bells that somehow felt calculating. Professional. How adorable. That should have been my first warning. That night I told my fiancée, Keisha, about the interaction. We'd been together since high school, childhood sweethearts who'd grown up in the same neighborhood, dreamed the same modest dreams. She was a nurse at the county hospital, and we were saving up for a small wedding and a down payment on a starter home. "Just be careful," Keisha said, her dark eyes worried. "Rich girls like that, they're not used to hearing no." "I'm not interested in anyone but you," I assured her, pulling her close. "Nothing and no one is going to change that." I meant it, but I had no idea what I was dealing with. Over the next month, Valentina's behavior escalated from inappropriate to alarming. It started with comments. "You have such strong hands, Toby. That shirt looks good on you. Do you work out? You must work out." I responded with professional distance, keeping my answers brief and redirecting to work-related topics. But she was relentless. Then came the touching. Her hand on my shoulder when she got in the car. Fingers trailing across my arm when I held the door. Accidental brushes against me that felt anything but accidental. I started documenting everything in a small notebook I kept in my pocket. Date, time, what she said, what she did. Hector Valdez, the security chief, had pulled me aside after 2 weeks. "Listen, kid," he'd said quietly. "Miss Whitmore has a history of getting attached to staff members. Usually she loses interest and moves on. But until she does, watch yourself. Never be alone with her if you can help it. And document everything." "Has she ever accused anyone of?" "Not here," he'd interrupted. "But there were rumors at her college. A professor she failed. Some story about him making advances. It was investigated, dismissed, but just be careful." That conversation terrified me. But I needed this job. My mother's medication alone cost thousands a month. So I did what Hector suggested. I documented everything and I installed dashboard cameras in the car, front and rear view with audio recording. I framed it as a safety measure for insurance purposes when I submitted the request, and Mr. Whitmore approved it immediately. Those cameras saved my life. The breaking point came 6 weeks into my employment. I was driving Valentina back from a shopping trip, and she'd been drinking champagne in the back seat, something she did regularly despite my discomfort with it. "Toby," she said, her voice taking on a different tone. "Pull over." "Is something wrong, Miss Whitmore?" I said, "Pull over. Now." I pulled into a parking lot, my heart racing. In the rearview mirror, I could see her leaning forward, her eyes intense. "I've been thinking about you," she said. "A lot. I like you, Toby. I want you." "Miss Whitmore, I'm engaged. Don't you know who I am?" She laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Do you have any idea what I'm worth? What I could give you? I could change your entire life." "My life doesn't need changing," I said carefully. "I'm happy with my fiancé. I'm grateful for this job, but I'm not interested in anything else." Her expression darkened. "You're choosing some nobody over me? Over Valentina Whitmore?" "She's not a nobody," I said, my voice firm despite my fear. "She's the woman I love. And I'm not for sale, Miss Whitmore." The silence that followed was terrifying. "Drive me home," she finally said, her voice cold. "Now." I drove back to the estate with my hands shaking on the wheel, knowing that I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. When we arrived, she slammed the car door so hard I thought she'd break something. That night, I showed Keisha the engagement ring I'd been saving for, a modest diamond, but bought with honest money and genuine love. "Marry me," I said. "Right now, tonight, I don't care. I just need you to know that you're everything to me. That no amount of money or power or anything else could ever make me want anyone but you." She said yes, tears streaming down her face. We planned a small ceremony for the following month. I had no idea I'd be in jail when that date came around. The next time Valentina approached me was different. Calculated. She'd clearly been planning it. I was washing the town car in the estate's garage when she appeared, dressed casually in expensive athleisure wear that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Toby, can we talk?" I set down the hose, keeping the open garage door behind me, my escape route. "Of course, Miss Whitmore. I want to apologize," she said, and she actually sounded sincere. "I was drunk and inappropriate. I made you uncomfortable and that wasn't fair. You're right, you have a fiancé and I should respect that." I was so relieved I almost let my guard down. Almost. "I appreciate that, Miss Whitmore. Thank you. But I do need to ask you something." She stepped closer and I instinctively stepped back. "Are you happy with her? Really happy? Because I could offer you so much more. Travel, luxury, experiences you've never dreamed of. You could support your entire family without ever worrying about money again. Your mother could have the best medical care in the world. Your siblings could go to any college they wanted. All you have to do is give me a chance." My stomach turned. She'd researched my family. She knew exactly where I was vulnerable. "Miss Whitmore," I said quietly, "my answer is no. It will always be no. I love Keisha. I'm going to marry her. And I'm not interested in you romantically, no matter what you're offering. I'm sorry, but that's the truth." Her face transformed. The mask of sweetness fell away, revealing something ugly underneath. "You're going to regret this," she hissed. "Do you have any idea what I could do to you? I could get you fired with a single word. I could destroy your reputation. I could make sure you never work in this city again." "Then I guess you'll do what you need to do," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But my answer is still no." She stared at me for a long moment, her jaw clenched. Then she turned and walked away without another word. I immediately went to Hector's office and told him everything. He was furious, not at me but at the situation. "I'm taking you off her personal assignments," he said. "From now on, you only drive Mr. Whitmore or run general estate errands. No more direct interaction with Miss Valentina." Will she accept that? She'll have to. I'll clear it with Mr. Whitmore. For 2 weeks the arrangement worked. I barely saw Valentina. When I did, she looked through me like I didn't exist. I thought maybe she'd moved on, found some other target for her attention. I should have known better. The call came at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. I was at home with my family, helping Maya with her college applications when my phone rang. "Reed, it's Hector. I need you to come in. Miss Valentina needs a driver to a party downtown, and everyone else is unavailable." My stomach sank. "Can't she use a ride service?" "Mr. Whitmore specifically requested you. He's out of town on business and apparently Valentina threw a fit about using a stranger." "I'm sorry, kid. I know this isn't ideal. Give me 20 minutes. I kissed Keisha goodbye, promising I'd be back soon, and drove to the estate. Hector met me at the garage. "Look, I know this is uncomfortable," he said, "but I'm logging everything. Your departure time, the destination, all of it. And the dash cams are running, right?" "Always." "Good. Get her to the party, drop her off, come straight back. Don't engage in conversation beyond what's necessary." "Understood." "Understood." Valentina was waiting by the car, dressed in a skin-tight red dress that left little to the imagination. She had a bottle of champagne in one hand and her phone in the other. "Toby," she said, her voice falsely sweet. "So good of you to come. Where am I taking you, Miss Whitmore?" "The Meridian Hotel downtown. There's a party in the penthouse suite." I held the door open and she slid into the back seat, bringing her champagne with her. As soon as we were on the road, she started drinking straight from the bottle. "Miss Whitmore, I'd really prefer if you didn't drink in the car." "Oh, shut up, Toby. I'll do what I want." The drive was tense. She made several more advances, leaning forward to touch my shoulder, asking me to join her at the party, suggesting we stop somewhere private first. I refused every overture, keeping my responses professional and my eyes on the road. The dashboard camera captured everything. When we arrived at the hotel, I parked and opened her door. She stumbled slightly as she got out, and I instinctively reached out to steady her, a moment of professional courtesy that she would later twist into something sinister. "Thank you, Toby," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You're such a gentleman. Will you need a ride home, Miss Whitmore? I'll text when I'm ready. Don't go far." I watched her enter the hotel, then returned to the car to wait. I texted Keisha that I was fine, just waiting on Valentina. Then I settled in with a book, assuming I'd be there for hours. Valentina texted 30 minutes later, "Come get me. Now." I pulled up to the hotel entrance, and she emerged looking disheveled but unharmed. She got into the back seat without a word, and we drove back to the estate in complete silence. When we arrived, I opened her door and offered my hand to help her out. Again, just professional courtesy. She took it, stepped out of the car and looked at me for a long moment. "You really should have said yes, Toby," she said quietly. Then she turned and walked into the mansion. I logged the trip with Hector, drove home and collapsed into bed next to Keisha, relieved the night was over. 3 hours later, the police knocked on my door. "Tobias Reed, you're under arrest for rape, assault and kidnapping." The words didn't make sense. I was standing in my pajamas in my doorway, surrounded by police officers with guns drawn, and they were saying words that couldn't possibly be directed at me. "What?" "No, there's been a mistake. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Please, my mother is sick, she has a heart condition, this will." They didn't care. They spun me around, cuffed me, and dragged me out of my house while my family screamed and my neighbors gathered to watch. At the police station, they threw me in an interrogation room and left me there for 2 hours before Detective Raymond Walsh entered with a thick file. "Mr. Reed, do you know why you're here?" "No. This is insane. What's happening?" "Valentina Whitmore has accused you of raping her tonight. She says you drove her to an isolated location against her will, assaulted her, and threatened her to keep quiet." My blood ran cold. "That's not true. None of that is true. She came to us 3 hours ago. Torn dress, bruises, and hysterics. She had a rape kit done at the hospital. We have physical evidence, Mr. Reed. Then she did that to herself because I never touched her. Check the car. I have dashboard cameras that record everything, video and audio. Check the mansion security footage. Check with Hector Valdez, the security chief. He logged my departure and return. Check my phone records. I texted my fiancée throughout the night." Detective Walsh looked at me for a long moment. "Dashboard cameras?" "Yes. Front and rear view with audio. They record every drive. Everything from tonight is on there." "Where are these cameras?" "In the car. The estate garage. Please, you have to look at that footage." He left the room. I sat there, shaking, trying to process what was happening. Valentina had actually done it. She'd actually accused me of rape because I wouldn't be her boyfriend. Hours passed. I was processed, photographed, fingerprinted. They let me make one phone call and I called Keisha. "Baby, I need you to listen to me carefully," I said, my voice breaking. "Something terrible is happening. I've been arrested. Valentina Whitmore is saying She's lying, Keisha. She's lying about everything. But I need you to believe me." "I do believe you," Keisha said immediately, her voice fierce despite her tears. "I know you, Toby. I know who you are. We're going to fight this." They denied me bail. The charges were too serious, they said. I was a flight risk, they said. I was moved to county jail to await trial. The news broke the next morning: billionaire's daughter attacked by trusted employee. Within hours, my face was everywhere. The media painted me as a monster, a predator who'd taken advantage of his position to assault a vulnerable young woman. My mother saw the news and had a heart attack. A small one, thankfully, but enough to hospitalize her. My siblings were harassed at school and work. Keisha's family begged her to break off our engagement, saying I'd clearly been living a double life. But Keisha stood firm. "I know him," she told her parents, her friends, anyone who questioned her. "He didn't do this." In jail, I was isolated for my own protection. Guards looked at me with disgust. Other inmates threatened me. I spent my days in a cell, replaying everything, trying to understand how my life had been destroyed so completely in a matter of hours. And then, a week into my nightmare, my public defender, an overworked, exhausted man named Gerald Scholl, came to visit me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Mr. Reed," he said slowly, "tell me again about these dashboard cameras." "The cameras record everything," I told Gerald for the third time. "Every drive, every conversation. Everything from that night should be on there." The police impounded the car. "I've been trying to get access to the footage, but there's been resistance." "Resistance? Why?" Gerald looked uncomfortable. "The Whitmore family has considerable influence. There's been pressure to move forward with the case based on Miss Whitmore's testimony and the physical evidence from her rape kit." "What physical evidence?" "I never touched her." "The bruises, the torn dress, the DNA evidence." My stomach dropped. "What DNA evidence?" "I didn't." "I know," Gerald said quickly. "But your lawyer before me, the one who was somehow paid off to resign, suggested that perhaps something had happened between you consensually and you were just covering it up. No. I was shouting now. Nothing happened. Nothing consensual, nothing non-consensual, nothing. Check the damn cameras. Gerald held up his hands. I believe you. That's why I fought to get access to the footage. And Mr. Reed. I finally got it. The way he said it made my heart race. And it proves everything you've been saying. Every word of it. I almost collapsed with relief. Thank God. Thank God. There's more. Detective Walsh, the one who arrested you, he's actually been troubled by inconsistencies in Miss Whitmore's story. He's been quietly investigating. And when he saw the dashboard footage, he started digging deeper. Over the next few days, Gerald and Detective Walsh pieced together what had actually happened that night. The dashboard footage showed everything: Valentina making advances in the car, me rejecting her professionally, her getting angry. At the hotel, it showed me helping her out of the car, a 2-second interaction that was purely professional. It showed her returning later, unharmed, and me driving her home. It showed her getting out at the mansion, completely fine, and walking inside under her own power. But that wasn't all. Security footage from the mansion showed Valentina entering the house, going to her room, and emerging 30 minutes later with her dress torn, makeup smeared, and fresh bruises on her arms. Bruises she'd given herself, slamming her own arms against furniture hard enough to leave marks. Her phone records showed texts to her friends that night. That driver rejected me again. He's going to regret it. I'll teach him what happens when you say no to me. The DNA evidence from the rape kit? It was from when I'd helped her out of the car. A brief touch of hands, enough to transfer skin cells. The hospital staff had documented that there was no evidence of sexual assault, but the initial police report had buried that detail. Staff members started coming forward. Mrs. Rose, the housekeeper, testified that she'd seen Valentina making advances toward me for weeks. Security guards confirmed that I'd tried to avoid being alone with her. Hector Valdez shared his documentation of everything, including his warnings to me and his attempts to keep me away from her. And then came the bombshell. Detective Walsh found the previous accusation from Valentina's college. She'd accused a professor of making sexual advances after he'd failed her in a class. The investigation had found no evidence, and the professor had proof that Valentina had made advances toward him first, trying to bargain for a better grade. The college had hushed it up with a large donation from Maxwell Whitmore. When Gerald presented all of this to the district attorney, there was a long silence. Then the DA picked up his phone. Get Miss Whitmore in here. Now. I wasn't present when they confronted Valentina with the evidence. I was still in jail waiting, but Gerald told me later what happened. They'd brought her in with her high-powered attorney, expecting another round of tearful victim testimony. Instead, Detective Walsh had set up a laptop and played the dashboard footage without saying a word. The color had drained from Valentina's face as she watched herself making advances, getting rejected, leaving the hotel unharmed, and returning to the mansion without incident. There must be some mistake, she'd said weakly. That's not. Then they played the security footage from inside the mansion. Her lawyer had actually gasped when the video showed Valentina deliberately tearing her own dress, smearing her makeup, and slamming her arms against furniture to create bruises. Miss Whitmore, Detective Walsh had said coldly, you are under arrest for filing a false police report, perjury, and attempted obstruction of justice. Her attorney had tried to intervene, but the DA had been furious. Do you have any idea what you've done? An innocent man has been in jail for a week. His reputation has been destroyed. His family is suffering. And you did this because he wouldn't date you? It's not like that, Valentina had protested. He was supposed to, I thought. You thought what? That you could destroy a man's life because your ego was bruised? That your father's money would protect you from consequences? The news of my innocence broke the same day they arrested Valentina. The media that had crucified me now scrambled to tell the real story. I was released immediately. When I walked out of jail, Keisha was waiting and I broke down in her arms. I knew, she kept saying, holding me as I sobbed. I always knew. My mother was still in the hospital, but her doctors said she was stable. My siblings had stayed in school despite the harassment. My community had been divided, some had believed in me, others had assumed the worst, but now everyone knew the truth. But knowing I was innocent didn't undo the damage. The week in jail had cost me my job. My face had been all over the news as an accused rapist. My reputation was in ruins. My family's savings had been drained paying for my mother's hospital bills. And Valentina? She was released on bail within hours, her father's money buying her freedom while I'd rotted in jail for a week on false charges. That's when Gerald made a suggestion. Sue them, he said. Civil suit for damages. You have overwhelming evidence of false accusation, malicious prosecution, defamation, emotional distress. The Whitmores have deep pockets and they should pay for what their daughter did. I wasn't a vengeful person. I just wanted my life back. But I also wanted justice. Do it, I said. The day after I filed the civil lawsuit, Maxwell Whitmore called me directly. Mr. Reed, this is Maxwell Whitmore. I wonder if you'd be willing to meet with me. Just you and me, no lawyers. Everything in me screamed not to go. But something in his voice, something broken and ashamed, made me agree. We met in his office at the mansion, the same building where I'd once worked. It felt surreal sitting across from him now, no longer his employee, but his daughter's victim and accuser. I watched all the footage, he said without preamble. His face was haggard, aged 10 years in a week. Every second of it. I saw what my daughter did. What she accused you of. What she was willing to do to you because you had the integrity to remain faithful to your fiancé. I said nothing, waiting. I built everything I have on integrity, Mr. Reed. I started with nothing, actually less than nothing. I had debt, no education, no connections. But I had honesty and I had work ethic and I built an empire on that foundation. He rubbed his face. And somehow I raised a daughter who has neither. Mr. Whitmore, I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm not asking you to drop your lawsuit. In fact, I'm here to tell you that I won't be defending Valentina. I've already cut her off financially. I've removed her from my will. I've made it clear that she will face the full consequences of her actions. I stared at him shocked. She's my daughter, he continued, his voice breaking slightly. And I love her. But what she did to you is unforgivable. She tried to send an innocent man to prison for decades because her ego was bruised. That's not someone I can protect, regardless of our relationship. What about the criminal charges? I've told the DA I won't use my influence to help her. She'll face trial like anyone else. And if she's convicted, she'll serve her time. As for your civil suit, he pulled out a folder. My lawyer drew this up. It's a settlement offer. $10 million for damages, emotional distress, lost wages, and your mother's medical care. Additionally, I'll personally pay for your siblings' education. Full ride, any school they want. And I'm starting a foundation in your name for the falsely accused, to provide legal support and resources. I looked at the papers, my hands shaking. $10 million. My mother's health care covered. My siblings' future secured. Why? I asked. Because it's right. Because you deserve it. And because. He met my eyes and I saw genuine pain there. Because I failed as a father, but I won't fail as a man. You deserve justice, Mr. Reed. And I'm going to do everything in my power to see that you get it. I took the papers. I'll have my lawyer review this. Of course. Take your time. But Mr. Reed? I'm truly sorry. For what my daughter did, and for the fact that my wealth enabled her to become the kind of person who would do it. The settlement was more than fair, it was generous. Gerald advised me to take it, and after discussing it with Keisha and my family, I signed. The money changed everything. My mother got the medical care she needed. My siblings could pursue their education without debt. Keisha and I could actually afford a wedding and a home. But more than that, Maxwell Whitmore kept his word about the foundation. The Tobias Reed Justice Foundation launched 3 months later, providing legal support for people falsely accused of crimes. Maxwell funded it personally with $10 million and recruited top lawyers to serve on the board. He also did something I never expected. He testified against his own daughter at her criminal trial. Valentina's criminal trial became a media sensation. The beautiful billionaire heiress accused of fabricating a rape claim, it was tabloid gold. But I wasn't interested in the spectacle. I was interested in justice. I had to testify, which meant facing Valentina in court. When I took the stand, she wouldn't meet my eyes. She sat at the defense table looking small and scared, a stark contrast to the confident, entitled woman who'd made advances in my car. Mr. Reed, the prosecutor said gently, can you describe for the jury what it was like to be falsely accused of rape? I took a deep breath. It was like dying, I said. Not a physical death, but the death of everything I'd built. My reputation died. My sense of security died. My faith in justice died. I spent a week in jail for a crime I didn't commit, knowing that if convicted, I'd spend the rest of my life in prison. Meanwhile, my mother had a heart attack from the stress. My siblings were harassed. My fiancé was pressured to abandon me. And all of it, all of that suffering, was because I had the integrity to say no to someone who wasn't used to hearing that word. How has this affected your life? I have nightmares. I'm afraid of police. I'm terrified every time my phone rings that it's another false accusation. I question every interaction I have with women who aren't my wife, wondering if being professionally courteous could be twisted into something sinister. The week I spent in jail felt like a lifetime, and I'll never get that back. When it was the defense's turn to cross-examine me, Valentina's lawyer tried to suggest that I'd somehow led her on, that my professionalism had been misinterpreted as interest. Mr. Reed, isn't it true that you knew Miss Whitmore found you attractive? Yes. And you continued to work for the family despite this attraction? I needed the job to support my family, and I maintained clear professional boundaries. I never gave her any indication that her advances were welcome. But you did touch her. On the night in question, you touched her hand. To help her out of the car. Was my job. It lasted 2 seconds and was completely professional. The dashboard camera footage shows that clearly. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury watched the dashboard footage. They watched the mansion security footage of Valentina injuring herself. They heard testimony from staff members about her pattern of advances and my consistent rejections. They read her text messages bragging about teaching me a lesson. The defense tried to paint her as mentally unstable, someone who needed help rather than punishment. But the prosecution proved that her actions had been calculated and deliberate. When it was Valentina's turn to testify, she tried to claim that she'd panicked after I rejected her, that she'd made a mistake in the heat of the moment, that she never meant for it to go this far. But the prosecutor destroyed her on cross-examination. Miss Whitmore, isn't it true that you spent 30 minutes deliberately creating false evidence of a rape that never occurred? I was upset. Isn't it true that you sent text messages to friends saying you would teach him a lesson? I was drunk. Isn't it true that you allowed an innocent man to be arrested, jailed, and publicly destroyed, and you said nothing to stop it? She had no answer for that. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman read the verdict. On the count of filing a false police report, guilty. On the count of perjury, guilty. On the count of attempted obstruction of justice, guilty. Valentina's face crumpled. Her mother, sitting in the gallery, sobbed. But Maxwell Whitmore sat stone-faced, accepting the verdict. The judge sentenced her to 5 years in prison, with no possibility of early parole. Miss Whitmore, the judge said, you attempted to use the justice system as a weapon against an innocent man because your ego was bruised. You showed no remorse until you were caught. You have damaged not only Mr. Reed's life, but also the credibility of actual sexual assault victims. Your actions were calculated, cruel, and deserving of serious punishment. As they led her away in handcuffs, Valentina finally looked at me. There was no apology in her eyes. Just shocked that she'd actually faced consequences. I felt no satisfaction in her conviction. Just relief that it was finally over. 1 year after that nightmare began, Keisha and I stood at the altar in a small church filled with family and friends. We'd kept the wedding modest despite having the money to do otherwise. That wasn't who we were. We were the same people we'd always been, we just had security now. My mother sat in the front row, healthy and smiling, thanks to the medical care she could finally afford. Aaron had just finished his sophomore year at MIT on a full scholarship funded by the Whitmore Foundation. Maya had been accepted to Johns Hopkins pre-med program, also fully funded. When the minister pronounced us husband and wife and I kissed Keisha, I thought about everything we'd survived to get to this moment. After the wedding, I threw myself into 2 projects. Building a small business and the Tobias Reed Justice Foundation. I used part of the settlement to start a transportation company that employed drivers like me, hardworking people trying to support their families. I paid them well, provided health insurance, and created a work environment built on dignity and respect. Within 6 months we had 12 drivers. Within a year, 25. But the foundation was my real passion. We provided legal support for people falsely accused of crimes, connecting them with good lawyers, paying for expert witnesses, funding investigations. We also advocated for better evidence collection in sexual assault cases, for dashboard cameras in all professional vehicles, for reforms to prevent false accusations from destroying innocent lives. Maxwell Whitmore remained involved, attending board meetings and providing guidance. Our relationship was strange. I'd never quite be comfortable with him, but I respected what he was trying to do. I can't undo what my daughter did, he told me at one foundation event. But I can make sure other people in your situation have the resources to prove their innocence. Valentina was in prison, serving her sentence. I'd heard through the media that she'd lost appeals, that prison was difficult for her. I felt no pleasure in her suffering, but I felt no sympathy either. One day, about 18 months after her conviction, I received a letter from her. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Toby, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to understand that I'm sorry. Truly deeply sorry. Prison has given me time to think about who I was and who I want to be. I was a spoiled, entitled person who thought the world existed to serve my desires. I couldn't handle rejection, and I lashed out in the cruelest way possible. I tried to destroy your life because you had the integrity to stay faithful to your fiancé and the courage to turn down my money. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to ever think of me with anything but hatred. But I wanted you to know that I understand now what I did. I understand the pain I caused you and your family. And I understand that I deserve every day of this sentence. I hope you found happiness. I hope your family is well. I hope someday you can move past what I did and build the life you deserve. I'm sorry, Toby. I'm so sorry. Valentina. I read the letter twice, then showed it to Keisha. Do you believe her? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe she's sincere. Maybe she's just learned to regret getting caught. But either way, it doesn't change what she did. Are you going to write back? I thought about it for a long time. Then I wrote a single sentence. I hope you become the person you should have been all along. I never heard from her again. 3 years after my false accusation, I stood in front of a group of law students at the state university, sharing my story as part of their criminal justice course. False accusations destroy lives, I told them. They destroy the accused, obviously. But they also hurt real victims by making people skeptical of genuine accusations. They damage the justice system by turning it into a weapon. And they reveal the worst of human nature, the willingness to destroy another person to satisfy your own ego. I showed them the dashboard footage that saved my life. I walked them through the investigation. I explained how close I'd come to spending the rest of my life in prison for a crime I didn't commit. But here's what I learned, I said. Document everything. Trust but verify. And never compromise your integrity even when someone offers you the world. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that saved me was the truth, and the fact that I'd recorded it. After the lecture, a young woman approached me nervously. Mr. Reed? I was falsely accused of theft by my employer last year. It was dropped when they found security footage showing I'd never been near the missing money. But I lost my job, my reputation. People still look at me differently. How did you move past it? I looked at her, this young woman carrying the same invisible scars I carried, and I felt my heart break for her. You don't move past it, I said gently. You move forward with it. You let it make you stronger, more careful, more determined to live with integrity. And you use your experience to help others. I gave her my card. The foundation offers counseling for people who've been falsely accused. Call us. We can help. She started crying and I gave her a hug, remembering all the people who'd stood by me when I needed it most. That night, I went home to Keisha and our 3-month-old son James. As I held him, I thought about the world he'd grow up in, a world where false accusations happened, but also a world where justice could still prevail. Tell him the story someday, Keisha said, watching us. When he's old enough. Tell him what happened and what you learned. What did I learn? I asked. That integrity matters. That documentation saves lives. That the truth will set you free. And that even when everything seems lost, if you hold on to who you are, you'll survive. I kissed my son's forehead and smiled. Yeah, I said. That's exactly what I'll tell him. Have you or someone you know ever been falsely accused of something? The damage is real, the pain is lasting, and the path to justice is often long and difficult. But as Toby's story shows, the truth does matter, evidence is crucial, and integrity will always be worth more than wealth or power. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next powerful tale. Have you experienced something similar? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's support each other in the pursuit of truth and justice.